and start young. But cats have shorter lifespans than humans and have to do without the luxury of a long childhood. A baby the age of these kittens, 6 weeks, is not able to run and jump and explore. And by the time the kittens are 5 months old, much younger even than this baby, they'll be adults. But for now, life is crammed full of adventures. At just 6 weeks, they're fast developing the full range of cat skills. They just need to perfect them. The simplest of toys can be educational, helping to practice hunting, for example. And more important for a house cat, to bond with humans. If they don't do it now, they never will, and will grow up wild. That human bond has served cats well. As humans have increased in numbers, so have house cats. Now, there are around 450 million cats on the planet, making the house cat the most successful cat species of all. And it hasn't meant losing their independence. They can live at the center of the human world or out at its edges. A house cat still has all the physical qualities that its wildcat ancestors had. Their spring and agility, their ability to avoid injuring themselves when they fall, by using their righting reflex, their valuable knack of automatically turning in the air and landing safely on padded feet. House cats, like cats in the wild, never do more than they have to and can spend up to 18 hours a day just sleeping. In the wild, cats tend to hunt at night, and house cats still have the eyes for that. Eyes that enable them to see in light 6 times dimmer than humans can manage. Centuries of domestication haven't changed the house cat's size drastically. All of them are about the same in that respect. But among the pedigrees, there are plenty of other distinctions, often engineered to satisfy certain, sometimes inexplicable human tastes. But cats, unlike almost any other domestic animal, look and behave much as they did in the wild. Their relationship with humans is a partnership. It's a partnership that can be traced back almost 4,000 years to one of the world's first civilizations, ancient Egypt. In the houses and on the streets of Egypt today, there's a certain kind of cat, slim and sinewy, that's very like the first cats to associate with man. These could be the cats that the earliest Egyptians bred and eventually even worshipped. And this is their ultimate source, the North African wildcat, a cat that could adapt to change. Egyptian civilization grew out of the invention of farming. People began to store grain, which attracted rodents. Rodents attracted wildcats. The cats were welcomed as hunters and scavengers, and a working alliance between cats and farmers was formed. Eventually, cats came to live with people in their houses. Domestication was a bargain struck between equals, and we never controlled them. Yet even today, we do not seem to fully realize this. Karen Overall is a specialist in animal behavior at the University of Pennsylvania.
We don't understand cats, and it's interesting because they've lived with human civilizations for thousands of years. And part of the problem is that we didn't actually, quote-unquote, domesticate them or develop them as a domesticated animal the way we did dogs. We let them be with us because they were really good hunters. They took care of rodents, and therefore they took care of disease. I mean, the plague was largely limited in some areas because cats killed the rats that carried the fleas that carried the plague. So we were more than willing to have cats sort of be with us, to have this sort of almost hands-off relationship with them. But we never really worked with them and domesticated them for specific behaviors. You'll never see a cat herding sheep like a border collie does. You won't see them being a seeing eye cat. Although they can be terrific companions, I don't think anybody would really want to rely on a cat for that type of skill. They're extraordinarily smart, and they've retained all that catness. They are totally individual, and we don't give them enough credit for that.
There are 37 species of cats today, and the first thing people recognize in any of them is their fundamental catness. The way they move, the way they tend to live and hunt alone, the way, unlike other carnivores such as dogs and bears, they feed exclusively on meat. And the reason people recognize this catness is that they have cats living among them. Cats as familiar to them often as other humans are. So what makes a cat the animal it is? What gives it its grace and sinuousness? Its excellence as a hunter. It starts with the basic framework, a light and flexible but sturdy skeleton. The backbone, which includes the balancing tail, is the centerpiece of a cat's almost rubbery suppleness. The discs between the vertebrae are thicker than in many other animals, and the connections between the bones are looser, giving greater mobility. Like a ballet dancer on point, a cat walks on its toes. This effectively increases the length of the leg and the distance covered by each stride, giving the cat extra speed. It also means that, surprisingly, this joint is actually the cat's ankle, the beginning of the foot. The foot bones are greatly elongated. And it is only the toes that are in contact with the ground for extra push and extra bounce. Part of the secret of the cat's agility lies in the design of its shoulder. The collarbone is free-floating, and the shoulder blades are not attached to the main skeleton. Everything is held together by ligaments and muscle, enabling the shoulder to move freely. And the muscles act a bit like springs. They're much more flexible than the muscles of most other mammals. They expand and contract like bungee cords and give the cat the power to jump several times its own height. A human with muscles like a cat's could leap from the ground to the top of a house. When a cat jumps, the power comes from the muscles of the hind legs. Each individual muscle is made up of many muscle fibers. These use a lot of energy to contract quickly, and when they let go like a catapult. Good for bursts of speed, but too exhausting for the long haul. A cat is a sprinter, not a marathon runner. The cat is also a tightrope walker. This is because its chest is so narrow and its front legs so close together. Whether it's on the branch of a tree or the top of a fence, it walks as if it's strolling down a street. But now that cats have come to live in houses, they don't always get to exercise their talents. There are ways, though, of turning interiors into surreal replicas of the outdoors. This is the world that belongs to Molly, Little Jimmy, Bernard, Tom, Frank, and 4 other cats.
Like most people, you start off with a couple cats, and at that point we thought that 2 was the perfect family, and then one thing literally led to the next, and now we have 9, and 9 cats seems perfectly normal for us. One thing we learned early on was that when we would go off to work every day is that we were leaving the cats in the house, and we realized that, hey, if possession was 9/10 of the law, it was really their house. So we decided to make it user-friendly, in this case, cat-friendly. One thing we do know about cats is that they love to go up and over. Cats definitely love to get to high vantage points. They love to look down on us. And now we have about 140 feet of cat path that extends through almost every room in the house. So wherever we are, they are.
You have a hard day today, Tom. Hey, Frank.
Frank drops in on Bob's wife, Frances, while Tom receives her undivided attention, however brief.
Whoa.
In the age-old human-cat contract, humans get pleasure from their half of the bargain, and the cats enjoy an indoor world as interesting and stimulating as outdoors, only safer.
We tried to make sure that our catwalk was not only friendly and fun for our cats, but also fun for us too.
Another part of the cat's domestication bargain was that these essentially solitary animals had to learn to live with each other. At the Anthrozoology Institute in England, John Bradshaw has been studying how cats relate both to humans and to other cats. His laboratory is home to 11 cats, who live in a tight-knit group.
Cats are often portrayed as being rather selfish in contrast to the dog, which is a much more loyal animal. Cats, I don't think, have a concept of loyalty. They see their relationship with people as an equal partnership rather than as a subservient relationship. But of course they are also sociable. I think that we've sold cats short in this respect. They are very sociable towards people. They can be sociable towards other cats if they grow up in the right sort of environment.
One famous study of free-ranging farm cats, made in 1977 by the Oxford biologist David MacDonald, showed just how sociable cats could be. Professor MacDonald's team fitted 4 cats with radio transmitters and followed them around for a year. Practically every move the cats made was recorded. There were 3 females and a male. The females, MacDonald found, always stayed around the farm in a close and friendly group. The male spent 2/3 of his time away, traveling, carousing, and mousing. But he always eventually did come home. The high point of the study was when the team witnessed one of the females helping another deliver her kittens. She acted as midwife and even helped bite the umbilical cord. Later, the 2, sharing a nest, would nurse each other's kittens. It was the first scientific record of such close cooperation between semi-wild house cats, and proof that, left to their own devices, they could be very sociable animals.
And what MacDonald's work showed us was that cat society isn't arranged in a linear hierarchy in the way that dog or wolf society is. It's much more of an equal partnership, a cooperation between related females that gather around a particular site where there's plenty of food and plenty of places to have kittens.
Modern pest control techniques are driving working cats, the mousers in the barn, out of business. But there are still plenty of places in the world where semi-wild cats live together. On the Italian island of Stromboli, these cats are everywhere. Here, cats are hardly ever kept as personal pets, but there are kind people who look after and feed them. One of them in the village of Ginostra is Signora Usci. She's been feeding an ever-changing colony for more than 40 years.
Where you get groups of cats is where people provide quite large amounts of food. They may do that deliberately by actually feeding the cats. They may do it accidentally by leaving food outside restaurants or whatever. Once the cats realise that there is a regular supply of food there, then they'll aggregate around it and start forming a colony. And these colonies give us a wonderful way of studying cat behaviour because it all happens in a fairly small area and we can watch it. Otherwise it's just too spread out and difficult to find.
For cats, living socially means doing things that their wildcat ancestors never had to worry too much about. For instance, communicating constantly. A wildcat might use scent to mark territory, but these cats have refined scent marking into a language. By spraying urine and using special cheek glands, they leave messages as distinctive as a voice or signature. Smell is highly developed in cats. A cat's nose has a mucous membrane where smells are imprinted, twice the area of a human's. And just below it is a second smell detector, the Jacobson's organ. To use this, the cat draws air in through the mouth, and special cells analyze the scent. And smell isn't their only way of communicating. Cats also use rubbing.
We think the rubbing signal is actually very important in cat society and also in cat-human society as well. Cats tend to rub on other cats that are slightly bigger or fiercer than they are. So, for example, females will tend to rub on a tomcat that they want to show some sort of deference towards. What they're doing when they rub on us is acknowledging that we are slightly stronger and more powerful than they are. Not necessarily superior, but just slightly larger, showing us some sort of deference so that they acknowledge that we're bigger, but they still want to be friendly.
And then there's purring.
Purring seems to be inviting some kind of attraction and also physical contact as well. So cats will purr when they're feeling contented and want another cat to come and sit down with them, or their owner, or whoever. But they will also purr in situations when they're in great pain, such as perhaps when they've been hit by a car. It seems rather bizarre because of people thinking that purring is about pleasure. But it isn't really about pleasure. It's about attracting attention and trying to get help in that particular circumstance.
It's done by vibrating the outer vocal cords, and each cat seems to have its own purring frequency.
One of the things we found from our observations of cats on farms and out and about in general is that they tend to be pretty quiet. Unless there's a fight or something going on, you don't hear them say very much. And one of the things they don't tend to do is to meow. The reason we think this happens is that basically the cat learns to meow. It learns that human beings respond very well to vocalizations. We're a conversational species, if you like. And so a cat finds that the best way of getting its owner's attention is to make a noise, and then it can indicate by some sort of body language about what it wants to do, whether it wants to be fed or whether it wants to be let out of the door or whatever. With some owners, obviously, this can develop into quite a conversation with the owner speaking and then the cat speaking alternately. Whether the cat really understands what the owner's saying or whether it's simply trying to get the owner's attention and say, hurry up and feed me, we're not sure. But certainly, cats become much more vocal when they're around people.
Very, very.
Songwriter Lindsay DePaul speaks fluent cat.
I have two cats. I have a Seal Point Siamese and this little one called Cleo. She's another Siamese, although you wouldn't believe it. And she looks like a cross between an alien and a tripod because she's only got 3 legs. And she's a wonderful little cat. She's a rescue cat. And I found that one has a different language with every cat one has. Cleo, Leo, Leo. Cleo, Leo, Leo. Yes? I used to speak fluent Burmese, but I'm learning Siamese pretty well now. Cats generally tell you everything they want. They're not polite. They will say, I want to go out. I want some food. Leave me alone. Give me a stroke. And you learn the noises they make and you imitate them back. It must mean something to them. Maybe I'm offending them sometimes. I don't know. You're a good girl, aren't you?
Cats have all the same senses humans have, but they work in different ways. A cat's senses evolved first and foremost to help with hunting. Even an easy-living house cat like Mango here still has all those sharp hunting perceptions, the front set eyes, for instance. When Mango looks at something, each eye gets a slightly off-center picture of it. The brain centers these and produces a three-dimensional image. Mango then knows how big the object is and how far away. Compared to the size of his head, Mango has much bigger eyes than our own. They gather more light. He can see as well in semi-darkness as in the middle of the day. Mango's eyes are so sensitive that they need pupils which can shut out bright light in a way that our own round pupils cannot. His pupils can close almost entirely into a slit. And then when the light fades, they open up to fill a much larger proportion of the eye than human pupils do. Mango can't see in the darkest dark, but he can see in much dimmer light than humans can. Cats have a layer of mirror cells at the rear of the eye. Light that has passed undetected through the light-sensitive retina is reflected back, giving the receptors a second chance to detect it. This increases the efficiency of Mango's eyes by 40%. And just to make things even more efficient, cats have invested more in light-sensitive cells that operate best in low-light conditions. Altogether, Mango can see in light levels 6 times lower than his human companion can. But a cat isn't better than a human at everything. Even if he could be taught to, Mango could never read. His eyes are not good at resolving fine detail, and he sees a printed page as a gray sheet. A cat sees the whole world a bit like someone who's lost his glasses. And a cat's not very good with color either. Cats have sacrificed detail and color to gain good vision at night. The cat's world of color is washed out. They can make out some yellow, some green, and some blue, but some colors appear as gray or black, like red. Another important hunting tool is hearing. Mango can turn his ears as well as his head. This helps him pinpoint a sound. The funnel-shaped ears really channel the sounds they pick up, amplifying them like a megaphone. Cats can hear sounds that just pass humans by, high-pitched ones such as the squeak of a mouse. And when a cat hears that squeak, it needs to know exactly where it's coming from. The relative intensity of the sound in each ear automatically turns the cat's head in the right direction. A cat is also very good at spotting movement, but when it gets closer to its prey, the next sense it needs is touch. This kind of game gives Mango a chance to go through his whole hunting routine. He even uses his whiskers to feel the feather. A whisker, 3 times thicker than a normal cat hair and 3 times deeper in the skin, has sensitive cells at its base. These give the brain minute information about anything the whisker touches. The front paws are supersensitive too, and are used to explore new things and to test out food. The pads can feel the speed of something passing over them. The information from the pads is relayed to the brain as instantly as electricity. A cat can learn a lot about something just by gently patting or stroking it. A cat's senses have been honed for hunting, but they're useful for mating too. A female, when she's ready to conceive, announces this by releasing scents that are picked up by the Jacobson's organ in the male's nose. In a free-living group, several males will converge and all try to mate with a female. The kittens in the resulting litter may have more than one father, so by mating freely, the female makes sure that at least some kittens get the best genes available. It's also a strategy for keeping the peace. Since no male cat will ever know which of the eventual kittens are his, he'll be less likely to hurt or kill any of them. When the kittens arrive, they're totally vulnerable. Though they're covered in fur, they can't regulate their own temperature. They're also blind, deaf, and unable to walk. But all that's a good thing. It means that under no circumstances can they stray from their mother, where anything could happen to them. Kittens follow the smell and the warmth to their mother's teats, latch on, and continue to suckle up to 8 hours a day. And when they're not suckling, there's only one other possible thing to do: sleep. The journey from birth to adulthood is, by human standards, pretty swift. To kittens, though, it must seem slow. This one is 10 days old. It can see a little, but its eyes are still cloudy and won't clear properly for another 3 weeks. At this age, the kitten cannot move about easily. It uses a slow, paddling stroke and keeps low to the ground for stability. But by the age of 3 weeks, the kitten is up on its feet and walking, albeit a little shakily. But it is not yet able to walk up on its toes like an adult cat. This posture will take a while to perfect. But confidence is growing, and the kittens show the beginnings of an urge to explore and play. A week later, and the play's getting better. The eyes have cleared, improving vision, and the kittens are beginning to use their tails to balance. At 5 weeks old, the kitten is beginning to control most of the things that make a cat a cat. It can walk a little like a cat. Its directional hearing is starting to work. And its vision is getting better all the time. At 6 weeks, just walking isn't enough. Playing and grooming are developing. At 8 weeks of age, in only 2 months, this kitten has become a young but complete cat. Everything from here is just a bit of growth and a bit of practice. The pattern of development is about the same for all species of cat. House kittens, though, have one other important lesson to learn: how to get along with humans. These people in Bristol, England, are volunteer kitten cuddlers coming to a home for stray cats and kittens.
Oh, there's a good girl. Okay, sweetie. Oh, how are you then? Oh, look at you. What beautiful, beautiful little kittens you are.
Contrary to what people tend to think, kittens aren't actually born with the ability to interact with us. They have to learn it. They'll start learning it from the time that their eyes open, and will probably stop learning at about 7 to 8 weeks of age. A cat that gets lots of attention, lots of handling at that time, will tend to grow up to be a person cat, a cat that likes to jump onto people's laps and to be stroked. A cat that gets a small amount of handling will tend to be the more aloof type, the one that will tolerate human presence but won't necessarily seek it out. If they don't encounter people during that critical period, then they're very unlikely to be friendly to people. They'll tend to go wild.
Uncuddled stray kittens will never know this kind of life. Cuddler Don England.
We like to get them in a home environment as much as possible with curtains and carpets and chairs so that when they go into a new home they're not fazed by it and they know what to expect. And hopefully we're homing perfect user-friendly little kittens. And of course we get people coming back to us and telling us how nice the cats are and how well house-trained they are, and that's what we aim for.
House cats are technically still the same species as wild cats. The two main things that make the house cat different are its social skills, with both people and other cats, and its color. House cats don't need camouflage. Freed from that requirement, the ancestral coat of the tabby-colored wildcat has given way to almost every pattern and hue any animal can conceivably have. Black, though, was the first new color to appear. Around 2,500 years ago, the Phoenicians were able to smuggle cats out of Egypt to use as mousers on their ships. And many of those cats were black. As they traded around the Mediterranean, the Phoenicians set up colonies in many places, such as Carthage and Gades, now Cadiz in Spain. And of course, the black cats traveled with them. In time, cats were in residence all around the Mediterranean. The black cats that roam Venice today probably have ancestors from Phoenician ships. A 1,000 years or so after the Phoenicians, the Vikings were the great sea power. They had ship's cats too, but they favored red tabbies, marmalades. It's a coloration that seems to have arisen in ancient Turkey, and the far-traveling Vikings carried red tabby cats from there to places up and down the rivers of Europe, and even to their Scandinavian homelands. The ship is the way that cats of all colors made their way around the world. Every place on the planet that's inhabited by humans is also inhabited by cats. And wherever cats landed, their lives became entwined with ours. This is Miami, Florida, home of one of America's classiest cat shows. These aren't average, randomly bred house cats. These are pedigrees, expensive contestants brought here to win their owners prestige and prizes. Nowhere is the human-cat relationship quite so intense.
What we're getting here is a little kitty makeup to even out the color.
These cats are being groomed for stardom.
Oh, wow.
He's such a beautiful boy.
You're so unhappy.
Cat shows have been happening for just over 100 years, and lots of the modern breeds of cats are a direct result of them. Many cat breeds are variations on types that developed naturally and locally. a chartreuse, linked with the Crusaders and French Carthusian monks. The Angora goes back to ancient Turkey and has changed little since then, and has also given rise to the fluffy Persian. Another long hair, the Maine Coon, from a cat that developed naturally in the cold New England winters. The Abyssinian is an ancient breed. Even today, these elegant cats retain the look of the first cats to associate with man. It was a natural mutation that shaped the Japanese bobtail, but now it's a thoroughbred. The spotted Ossicat looks like a wildcat, but it was bred to look that way. The American curl, with its strange ears, descends from a mutation discovered in 1981. The Cornish Rex, with its curly coat, is recent too, going back to a mutation in a litter of farm cats 50 years ago. The Siamese. Sleek and intelligent, it's one of the world's favorite purebred cats. It's also an ancient breed and can trace its origins to Siam, now known as Thailand.
One of the most fun cats I had the pleasure of handling this weekend was this brown patched tabby. What I especially liked about this cat was this fantastic roundness to that head, short nose, rounded skull, and just such a beautiful, beautiful expression, even though she is a little on the wild side. Best champion in show, best cat in show!
Cats differ from almost every other domestic animal in that they aren't usually bred for any particular use, just to satisfy various human tastes. And when tastes change, cats change. A cat show a little over 40 years ago, and a Persian entry. A Persian entry today. Fashion has now decreed that Persians don't need noses, and in the process of flattening them, breeders have created an animal with distorted tear ducts and eyes that continually weep. Today's Siamese, in an effort to recreate what Westerners regard as an Oriental look, a thin, frail animal with health and breeding problems. 40 years ago, a Siamese contestant was chunkier than today's, but still slender, sleeker, and more exotic than ordinary cats. Other modern variations on the Siamese. The face is no longer round, but triangular. And then there's this triumph of the breeder's art, the Sphinx, a cat with no hair. But these are the aristocrats of the cat world. On the other side of Miami's tracks, you find cats like these. They're feral. House cats and their offspring that have gone wild. They live in colonies on the edges of our lives and depend on each other and on human handouts to survive.
Come on, come on. Let's go.
In the U.S., perhaps 60 million cats live this way.
Come on, kitties.
The ones that survive seem healthy enough. It's just that a lot of people consider them pests, and in some places they're exterminated. But groups such as Cat Network and Alley Cat Allies work towards a middle way, to feed the cats, but also to stop them breeding.
We'll go up north and feed the rest and then come back and get these plates so we don't leave them on the beach. Okay? All right.
All right.
Good.
Bye, kitties.
Goodbye, babies.
Some cities have feral cat neutering programs. This is Orlando, Florida, and the headquarters of the cat welfare group CARE. Connie Graham and Barbara Logan capture cats and take them to be neutered.
I'm really after the friendly white and tan male.
How old do you think he is?
About a year.
There are a lot of people that feel that the best thing for feral cats is to put them down, to kill them. And that's what has been done for a number of years. The big thing with that is that it hasn't worked. There are still more feral cats than ever out there. No one knows how many. It's impossible to count them, but estimates are in the millions or double digits of the millions. These cats started out as someone's pet, and people moved off and left them behind, didn't want them anymore, got tired of them, dumped them someplace. And so the cats who are intact, they've not been spayed or neutered, will find other cats that are intact and start breeding. And you start out with 1 or 2 cats, and before you know it, you can have colonies of 20 and 40. And in one area that someone did some trapping through our program has actually brought in over 80 cats in one area, which is unbelievable.
In theory, one female cat could give rise to thousands of descendants. Of course, natural losses wouldn't really allow this, but it's in everyone's interest if the feral female doesn't breed at all. Cats are not always the easiest of animals to trap, but in Orlando and throughout Orange County, organizations such as CARE trap as many as they can, always with someone standing by, and always covered immediately to save the animal stress. Then from all parts of the city, cats are taken to the neutering clinic. Even kittens. Hopefully, they will soon be found new and loving homes. It's almost an assembly line. The cats are anesthetized, prepared, and taken to be snipped. It is efficient and painless. Many are released the same day, but some may need to be kept overnight to make sure they're all right and that the anesthetic has worn off. Most go back to their colonies to live out their lives.
Home, little one. You know where you are?
Volunteers will check on them regularly and give them food.
As long as we give them maybe a little help by spaying and neutering them, inoculating them against some diseases that they can pick up, they stand a much better chance of living a normal, actually lengthy life. We don't believe they're better off dead. Life is precious, and death is something that we all have to face, but unnecessary death is something we want to avoid.
There probably wouldn't be so many feral cats in the first place if people understood more about cats and what it takes to keep them.
Class, I'm very happy to tell you that we have a special guest.
And just as kittens need to be taught about people, children need to be taught about cats.
Who has a cat at home? Good. Roberto and Alexis have a cat at home. Roberto, what's your cat's name? Kiko. Alexis, what's your cat's name? Fluffy. Well, Hector's going to come in with 3 special cats, and we're going to get to pet them, and we're going to learn their names and call them, and we'll get to learn some special things about them. Are you ready? Yeah! Good.
In Miami, Hector Castaner and his cats, known as Buster and the F-Team, take the message to schools.
Here is Flashback, here is Buster. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Buster, come. Buster, come.
I want
What's his name?
I want Bowser.
Talk to him.
This is Cats helping people help cats. There are also cats that are helping people help people.
Marilyn, I think I found the samples we've been looking for from the North African cheetahs.
That's great.
Stephen O'Brien of the National Cancer Institute.
We first became interested in cats about 15 years ago when we realized that there was a number of infectious diseases which were fatal in humans and also in cats. It was in the late 1980s that the feline version of the AIDS virus was originally discovered, and we were a little bit curious about whether or not the virus that was causing an AIDS-like illness in domestic cats had found its way into any of the other species of the cat family. Perhaps we were walking into the beginning of an epidemic that would decimate all the cat species in the way that was decimating the human populations where AIDS had broken out.
The prospect was horrifying. 36 species of wild cat in the world, almost all of them at the risk of extinction anyway, and it looked as if they were now in danger from, of all things, AIDS. But the more the Institute collected blood samples from more species of cats, the more it seemed there was more to the story.
What we discovered was exactly what we didn't expect, and that was that virtually every cat species on the planet had some level of infection and exposure to a version of the virus that causes AIDS in domestic cats. But what was different was that these cats, the wild cats, at least the ones that we looked at, they didn't seem to be getting sick. They didn't seem to be developing immunodeficiency disease, and that was a puzzle. So what's happened with some of these cats is that they've actually evolved genetic defenses against a fatal disease like the AIDS virus. And understanding that in the cats might lead us to discovering a similar kind of natural genetic mechanism in humans.
As companions, humans and cats go back maybe 4,000 years. But there's much more than companionship in the link. Both are mammals, and both have a common genetic heritage. Could it be that cats will help reveal a genetic cure for human AIDS?
And in 1996, we were actually lucky enough to discover the first gene that actually caused a genetic resistance to HIV infection. And this led us to come up with a target, if you will, for new pharmaceuticals that imitate the effects of this natural genetic resistance to a fatal infectious disease.
Cats. By killing rats, they're credited with helping limit the Great Plague. Will studying their genes help stop a disease that in parts of the world is already at plague proportions? Cats, after all, are our old friends. They came to us at the same time civilization did. And of all the animals we've domesticated, they're the only ones with whom we don't have a master-servant relationship. Cats choose to stay with us, and we live with them, have them in our houses, for one reason and one reason only. We like them, and they like us.